Hello and welcome to Devil's Advocate. Are reservations the best way of increasing women MPs, and how committed is the government to the Women's Reservation Bill? Those are the twin issues I shall discuss today with the Law Minister, Veerappa Moily. Mr. Moily, whilst every right-thinking person would accept that the government has to increase the number of women MPs in Parliament, why does the government believe that the best way of doing so is by reserving 33% of the seats in the Lok Sabha?
May not be the ideal way, but it is inevitable. You know the statistics.
But if it's not the ideal way, then should you not find a better way? Because there are other ways that you could consider. For example, you could have chosen to amend the Representation of Peoples Act to require parties by law to field a minimum of 33% candidates. Why did you not choose that instead?
Of course, there are three ways to deal with things. Number one, voluntary. And South Africa has done it. They are giving 45% reservation, absolute voluntary. Then the mandated reservation, that is what you have said, like the amendment of the Representation People's Act. The last one is the constitutional amendment to reserve. But the first, we have seen 62 years, and in the world record, and the Asian record, we have the least representation of women.
But if you had gone through the party quota route, which is something that Sweden has done, Iceland has done, Netherlands has done, Norway has done, you could have achieved their levels of 41, 47 and 43%. Why did you not choose that? Reservations are by definition controversial. This would have been as effective, but it wouldn't have been controversial.
No, that is also, but ultimately that is also reservation, whether it is mandated or voluntary.
It's a different sort of reservation. It isn't a reservation of parliamentary seats. It's simply a requirement that parties field a certain specific number of women candidates. That wouldn't have been controversial. You would have achieved the same end without the controversy.
The very fact that we could not march ahead in this, and we could not provide 600 million population of this country, mainly women, cannot be kept out of the mainstream. And we have experimented everything up these 62 years.
Look then, Minister, at the problems that you're incurring to begin with. The 33% reservations for women which you're legislating come on top of 22.5 for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. And although there's a small overlap between the two, you're still going to end up with 48.5% of the seats in the Lok Sabha reserved one way or another. In a democracy, is such a high level of reservation of Lok Sabha seats acceptable?
No, you are talking it on a flat consideration. Women reservation cut across the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe.
I've taken that into account.
No, that can't be done.
I've taken that account. Even if you take into account the fact that one cuts across the other, you end up with 48.5% seats reserved.
This will not be an offensive thing because it cuts across caste, community, creed, anything.
I'll tell you why it will be offensive, because if you look specifically at the case of non-scheduled caste and non-scheduled tribe men, which is 78% of the male population, they can only now contest for 51.5% of the seats. From their point of view, it's grossly unfair.
Yeah, men has to yield to the women.
But by incurring unfairness?
No, where is the fairness? Is it not unfair all these 62 years to deny and make it only the women represented only 11.2%?
But Minister, you may be correcting one wrong and incurring another one. Is it right to correct one wrong and incur a second wrong?
No, I don't think. It is very fair to provide the representation of the fair sex.
Except, Minister, if 78% of the male population of India can now only contest for just over 50% of the seats, precisely 51.5%, that is going to be perceived as unfair.
Why don't you look at it from the women's point of view?
But the point I'm making is that there were other ways of doing it. If you had gone down the party quota route, you wouldn't have incurred this problem, and you would have still had more women MPs.
Unless you go in for this kind of a constitutional amendment, or the party quota and other things, ultimately it will not click.
How do you know? We have seen it. You haven't tried it. How do you know it won't click?
You know very well. It's not abruptly we thought about it. Right from the days of Rajiv Gandhi, thereafter 1996, the first constitutional amendment bill was introduced, and it was given to the Parliamentary Standing Committee with Geeta Mukherjee and she gave a report.
And unfortunately,
and thereafter, there is a fourth bill being introduced.
but it's the same content that's carrying on. In fact, the truth is your cabinet colleague, Dr. M.S. Gill, when he was Chief Election Commissioner way back in '98, had suggested the alternative that I'm today discussing with you.
But
and it has been supported by him outside the cabinet. Unfortunately, he didn't support it inside the cabinet.
You know that, parliamentary, the parliament had a standing committee. 4 times these things have gone in and deliberated by the parliamentary standing committee. It is, there's a national debate went on. Ultimately, I am here to implement what has emerged as a national consensus.
But you began.
What has emerged in the parliament as a consensus.
But you began.
And today I cannot bulldoze all that exercise made all these 15 years and say this should be the procedure.
But Minister,
you understand my limitation.
I understand your limitations, but remember how you began this interview. You began by saying that reservations is not ideal. So what are we doing? Through a constitutional amendment, we are changing the very structure of Parliament, the temple of our democracy, in a way that you yourself concede is not ideal.
I don't think you can take it out of the context. What I said, voluntary reservation is the ideal thing, which has not happened all these 62 years.
Let me tell you another problem that you're incurring by these reservations. Not only would it look unfair to 78% of the male population of India, who can now only contest 51.5% of the seats, but more importantly, look at the way these reservations are being implemented, because each seat will only be reserved for 1 out of 3 elections. You are reducing the incentive for the successful women MP to nurture that seat, and by implication, you're also reducing the incentive for the MP she's going to displace.
I'm not going into the wisdom of the parliamentary standing committees all these 15 years. Ultimately, in their wisdom, they found this is the best method, best solution.
But I'm pointing to you that this is not wisdom, this is close to folly. You know and I know that at the very heart of parliamentary democracy is the link between an MP and his or her constituency. Now, after this bill is passed, in the case of 66% of Lok Sabha MPs, that link will be either weakened or fractured. Is that acceptable?
This constitutional amendment is not the standalone thing. We are going to have another law, which we have ordinary law, parliamentary law, to provide the determination of the seats and also to provide the rotation system.
Quite right, but the rotation system will accentuate the problem I'm talking about. The second rotation comes into being. Each candidate in these reserved seats will only be reserved for 1 election at a time. Therefore, she won't have an incentive to nurture the constituency, and worse still, the 33% that get displaced next time may not also have an incentive. So that's what I'm saying. 66% of the Loks at any one time will not have the same incentive to nurture their constituency.
You should understand, in a parliamentary democracy, it is the privilege of the people to elect, not the privilege of the person to get elected.
But now,
you should understand that.
I accept that. But now you're creating a situation where the incentive of the MP to nurture the constituency, to serve the constituency, is reduced because the MP has a good idea believing, I'm not going to win, why bother? That's human nature.
I think it is far-fetched. We have experimented it in the local boards under the 73rd and 74th Constitution. Such a rotation is allowed and is working very well. And the millions and millions of the representatives are, and in the grassroots level, this has proved success. Why not here?
If you're so happy with this bill, as you're saying to me, and that you've considered it effectively and you've given it all the due rational analysis it requires, then how do you explain the fact that on Thursday, Pranab Mukherjee, speaking as leader of the House on the floor of the Lok Sabha, said that the government is now open to considering changes, and even talked of the possibility of amending the bill and sending it back to the Rajya Sabha for reconsideration? How do you explain that?
I don't think he has gone to that extent.
Can I quote to you what he said? Let me quote to you what he said.
I know, I have said.
No, I'm quoting.
I know it.
Let me quote you. Minister, on the 11th of March, he says, it can be considered if it is possible to narrow down divergences and bring about convergences. And then he adds, if there would be an amendment, the other house will also have to take it into account. If there would be an amendment, he's talking of amending the bill.
I'm sorry, I think it has been misconstrued. His statement is very clear. I was present when he gave that statement. You also know that the Parliament is supreme. It is not one minister or another person dictating to the parliament. Ultimately, we'll have to take the parliament into confidence.
In fact,
ultimately, it is the supreme right of the parliament to whether to amend at any, it can be amended either this or that. That's a paramount right of the parliament.
Absolutely.
I am not dictating to the parliament how you should do it.
Minister, when you begin to talk about the possibility of changes disguised under the supreme right of parliament to amend, what you're conceding is that what was passed by the Rajya Sabha is not sacrosanct. It can be amended if the majority A chooses, or B, if the government decides that it doesn't want to incur.
That is parliamentary democracy. So how can I speak anything contrary to the parliamentary democracy?
Then what is it?
Ultimately, after all, each house is powerful absolutely on its own right.
Then let me put
that
this
is the sovereign right of the parliament. And at the same time, you should understand ours is the largest parliamentary democracy, but because of keeping the women out, we have not become the, in fact, inclusive democracy.
I accept
this
your
is
point.
The greatest deficit which we are suffering today.
Minister,
we need to correct it.
Minister,
how you are going to correct it, it is for the parliament.
The important thing is how you are going to correct it. The second you begin telling me that there can be amendments, that it's the power and supremacy of parliament,
that's it.
Then why did
how can I shut out?
Then why did you rush it through the Rajya Sabha? Why did you enforce it on Tuesday? Why did you not have these consultations in advance?
No, I am very sorry to say. The consultations have gone in since more than 25 years. Particularly after 15 years, 1966, and the national debates and symposiums have been held.
Then why is Pranab Mukherjee talking about the need for more consultation? Either they've been sufficient or they haven't been sufficient.
No, we are saying that we are hurried up in the Rajya Sabha is not correct. It is only after the convergence of the views,
Minister,
and it is only after evolving the national debate on this. The bill has been formed, and it was approved by the Parliamentary Standing Committee. It was reflected by everyone.
Minister, I have to interrupt you because you're saying to me that it was only after convergence of views that the bill was presented. That's not true, because Pranab Mukherjee's words are, we will consider whether it is possible to narrow down divergences.
You are reading between the lines, which is not fair.
I'm not reading between the lines. I'm reading the lines.
I know that is the view of everybody. Nobody can say no. But the question is, 1 minute. We will have to take everybody on books. That's why in the Lok Sabha, we want to reduce the friction. And friction could be reduced by so many ways. This is not the only way.
Minister, if reducing friction is what's necessary, if taking everyone and if taking
that's the process of parliamentary democracy.
Let me finish. If reducing friction is necessary and taking everyone on board is essential, why did you not do it before the Rajya Sabha? Why afterwards? Surely you should have had your all-party meeting, which you have now agreed to, before the Rajya Sabha. Surely this message that the bill can be amended to reduce divergence should have been given before the Rajya Sabha, not after. Why are you doing it the wrong way around?
No, please don't forget the Rajya Sabha passed this bill with a overwhelming majority, and it is also likely to be passed by an overwhelming majority. You can't say that it is bulldozed.
But you're not talking about sending it back to the Rajya Sabha.
I am sorry.
So that overwhelming majority.
I am sorry that I am sorry. In the result of a deliberation and a consultation, wherein all the political parties are involved, anything can happen. That is what he said. Okay. That doesn't mean, this is the decision of the government to send it back. No. This is not the decision as on today of the parliament to Lok Sabha to send it back.
Absolutely.
No.
But you're holding open the possibility that is what could happen.
Congress party, the UPA government is totally committed to this bill in the form it was passed by the Rajya Sabha, and at the same time, we are not shutting out the process of parliamentary democracy for consultation, discussion, any stage. That doesn't mean minority, a few people can definitely cannot bulldoze.
Let me put this to you. If you are committed to consultation, if you are committed to an all-party meeting, let me finish. In which case, what's the purpose of that consultation if you're not prepared to amend the bill after the consultation? Are you going through a farce with Mulayam Singh Yadav and Lalu Yadav? Are you simply appeasing them, knowing that you're not going to change anything?
See, majority in a parliament, they cannot bulldoze the minority. At the same time, minority cannot take undue advantage of bulldozing the majority opinion. This is a basic
are you open to amendment if that is what is
not
felt
for the
necessary?
No. That we don't know what kind of discussion and consultation.
So then you are open to it if you don't know what's going to happen.
I am not telling you open. Don't just take out like this. There is in a consultation process, even with one man, if he is dissenting, idea is to talk to them.
All right.
No, just because we are talking to some people, just because we are talking to one or two individuals, that doesn't mean one or two or few individuals' opinion should prevail over the majority opinion which has been passed by the Rajya Sabha.
Minister.
And the majority consensus, national consensus, which has been arrived after a due consultation, after a due process of debate all over the country.
What is
all
the
these 15
purpose?
years,
In which
all
case,
the 15
in
years.
which case, Minister, what is the purpose of the consultation? Are you going through a mockery?
No,
Are you
because-
making a fuss?
No,
Will
no.
Mulayam Singh
I'm sorry.
Yadav end up more
No,
angry?
no. By opening up discussion and consultation every stage, even at the last passage of bill, that doesn't show the weakness.
All right.
That shows democratic responses
What's
from
the
the UPA.
purpose
We
of,
should rather
what's the
appreciate
purpose
Congress
of
and the
discussion
UPA.
if you're not open to changing your mind?
No,
What's the purpose of discussion
They
if you
have
won't change your mind?
You must understand, there are certain issues and concerns which are raised by them. They feel strongly that has to be done. We want a smooth sale of the bill.
So you're going
And
to
in
hear
the
them,
process of
you're going
smooth
to
sale
hear
of
them,
bill-
but that's all.
Pardon?
After hearing them, you've already decided you're not going to implement anything they say.
No, I don't want to preempt anything.
All right.
The question is, discussions, yes. Is that question, after all, even a marriage is a the bundle of compromise.
But this is very interesting.
Don't forget about
A bundle of compromise.
Yeah.
Even a marriage is a bundle of compromise. While you're smiling, let's take a break. I want to come back and put you in the remaining 2 minutes left. The dilemma the government faces when you compare this to marriage and a bundle of compromise. That's in a moment's time. See you after the break. Welcome back to Devil's Advocate with the Law Minister Veerappa Moily. Dr. Moily, you ended part one comparing the Women's Reservation Bill to marriage, and you said marriage is a bundle of compromises. Let me put this to you. You today, as a result, face a dilemma. If you end up amending this and going back to the Rajya Sabha, you'll unravel what Sonia Gandhi called a triumph on Tuesday night. On the other hand, if you push the bill through exactly as it is without changes, you'll end up losing the support of the Samajwadi Party, the RJD, possibly the BSP, maybe even Mamata Banerjee. One way or another, you have two difficult choices and you can't escape.
No, I don't think there is such a difficult process. That at the same time, our Congress President, Sonia Ji, our UPA, the Congress, and also the rest of the parties like BJP, and many other political parties and other independents, they are totally committed to this bill.
Actually, they're not. That's the one sad thing that's true. You know that something close to 70% of BJP MPs, according to the Indian Express, who knows what the figure for Congress is, but it probably may be as big, have serious disagreements with separate parts of this bill. Some are opposed to it completely, some are opposed to it in part. You know that there is pressure in your party, there's pressure in the BJP, apart from the fact that your allies are putting pressure both inside and outside the government. So I come back to you. If you amend, you lose the triumph Sonia Gandhi claimed on Tuesday. If you don't amend, you may end up converting your majority into a minority. You're caught between the two.
No, we are not caught. We are very confident on the ground. And I don't think in any political party.
In which case, a simple question.
Support. Another question is, any reform, any change is some sort of a creative destruction.
Well, that always
We should know that.
I know that.
And in a reform, in the transitional period, yes, there will be apprehensions. The people feel that there is threat to their existence. And all those things are bound to that.
I accept that.
At the same time, when
I'm interrupting you. I'm interrupting for one simple reason. We have only 20 seconds left. If you're determined to go ahead, do you have a deadline by when you want this passed by the Lok Sabha?
No, we would like to pass it in the present session, either in the first part or the second part, which will come.
Can you guarantee that will happen? Can you guarantee that will happen?
We are very confident on that ground.
You're guaranteeing it?
We are very confident on the ground.
Is that a guarantee?
No, I am not the House, the Lok Sabha. I am individual.
That last sentence perhaps says it all. A pleasure talking to you, Minister.
Thank you.